Welcome back to Medical Monday. I've had some great calls about hearing loss, hearing solutions. One thing we have not talked about, which I am shocked at, because usually this is the majority of our calls, tinnitus.
Right. Right.
What is it? Because I know so many people experience it because people are always calling in about it, just not tonight.
Last month, I think we got 7 calls in a row about it. So tinnitus or tinnitus, actually both are correct pronunciations, is ringing in the ears. So now the phone's going to start ringing as soon as we talk about that. If you've ever had the perception that it sounds like cicadas, sounds like bugs, depends on the part of the ear that is affected, where the ear is affected. Sometimes it can be more of a wind noise or a rushing sound, but usually it is a sign of some damage to the nerves in the inner ear, and that could have happened because of noise. It could have happened because of medication. It can happen because of disease. Different things can sort of cause that. Having ringing in the ears in and of itself is not a terrible thing. It doesn't mean that your hearing is horrible, but usually it is one of the signs that we see that there may be some deficit going on in hearing. Usually it's one of the first things that people will notice. Most of the time that happens with people who've been around noise. I've been a hunter, a shooter my whole life, and I have some hearing loss specifically from that, from a gun getting too close before I had an earplug somebody shot, and I've had ringing in the ears or tinnitus ever since. It's not really the question we always get. I get in the office, I've gotten on this show a number of times, is, well, what can you do about it? I wish I could say you just take this pill. Or you just do this exercise, or you just eat right for 3 months. And unfortunately, there's no scientific evidence that we can medically treat that with medicine, with pharmaceuticals. Actually, hearing aids are very effective at treating tinnitus because
it kind of deafens it, right?
Well,
is that correct?
To some extent, but it also makes you hear more external sound. So for example, I have a high-pitched hearing loss in my left ear. When I don't have my hearing aid in, the primary high-pitched signal I hear is the ringing in my ear. When I have my hearing aid in, I can hear the air rushing through the vent over there. I can hear us rustling around with papers. I hear a lot more sound, which kind of has a masking effect. Most people who have tinnitus will tell me, well, I don't notice it until it gets really quiet, or I don't notice it until I'm laying in bed at night, or I don't notice it until I'm sitting there trying to read, and because when it gets quiet, there's not other sounds to mask. So the way hearing aids help is really putting more input, more like what normal hearing people would hear, and covering up some of that ringing going on.
Is it usually the first sign that you have hearing loss, or just it happens to some people?
Not to everybody. I mean, of people who have hearing loss that is significant, about 60% will experience some tinnitus. So not everybody. I've seen people with severe hearing loss that don't have it at all, but a lot of people, that is one of the first signs that they see. We've
talked a lot about that first visit to your office. I know that you do suggest bringing somebody with you. Why?
Absolutely. That is probably, I preach that to my staff. There's 2 reasons. Number one is, as we talked to an earlier caller, I think, Ken. I think it was Ken. I don't know if I got that right. About how important it was that he could hear his wife and how important their conversations were to them. Hearing loss doesn't just affect me. It affects my wife, it affects my kids, it affects my family, it affects my friends, it affects more than just me. In fact, if it were up to just me, you know, that's what a lot of people are going to say, if it's up to just me, I ain't going to do nothing about it. But when it starts to affect those relationships, that is important. I really like having a spouse in the visit because I feel like we sort of verify, reinforce some of the reasons that they've been experiencing the things that they've been experiencing. And I mean that both for the patient as well as the spouse. So I talked about a gentleman I saw today earlier. You know, his wife was like, you have no idea how long I have been praying for this day to come in where we were going to do something about it. And I mean, they've been married for 53 years, great marriage, love each other. She said, but I know how frustrating it is for him, and it's frustrating for me, and being able for the spouse to really understand what's happening, and again, kind of give some reinforcement to the patient to say, okay, she might be fussing at you, but you got a real problem. You know, it's not just your imagination, it's not just listening. So I'm not a marriage counselor, but I play one, you know, quite regularly during the week. But the other reason is I like for somebody else to hear the information.
Yes.
I look at that first visit as really a teaching opportunity. Let us teach you what's happening. Let us teach you what we can do to help you. and then the two of you together make a decision about what the right solution is. I cannot tell you hundreds and hundreds of times in my career where I've sat down with somebody and kind of counseled them through their hearing loss, and they say, I wish my wife could have heard all this, or can I bring my wife back in and let you tell her? And I say, yes, we'll be glad to do that, because that spouse or significant other, or sometimes it's a daughter or son that a patient's living with, or that is the most important connection, and I think it's very valuable for both people to understand that.
Okay, so if you are convinced it is time to have that conversation, we're going to give you Dr. Gneewikow's address and phone number, email, everything, how to get a hold of him right when we come back. So get your pen and paper ready, and we'll see you in just a few minutes.